Hi, everyone. We've been talking about letting go and the steps that I use in my toolbox to try to master this skill of letting go. And let me just remind you, in case you haven't heard, I don't have it mastered yet. I have a really hard time, in fact, letting things go. And I've come to, with the help of therapy and research and talking and friends and bouncing things off of one another, I've come to this realization that this is going to be several steps, but it's not just several steps of doing things and then we're done. It's almost like going to the gym. Like you can go do bicep curls, right? But you're not going to build biceps until you do bicep curls over and over and over and over and over and over and rest in between, right? So I'm not going to get guns on my arms just because I go to the gym and do bicep curls once. So this is going to take some time and some practice. And, if you're talking about going to the gym, there's proper form, of course. There's reps. There's, heavier weight or lighter weight, or what are your goals? Do you want to build or do you want to tone? So this just be patient with yourself if letting go is one of your goals. Letting go is one of my biggest goals. And I believe I can't get to forgiveness until I let go. And I haven't been able to let go. So it's a practice. So let's dive in. Step 2. Well, let's talk about step 1 real quick. Step 1 was recognizing that letting go is a choice. This is a conscious choice that I make to say, I want something better than being stuck where I am. I deserve something better than constantly spinning my wheels on this one thing. And this could be anything. This could be an argument you had with a friend, or something that happened at work, or a promotion that you didn't get, or if somebody said something negative to you, or negative feedback, or disappointment with your children or loved one or sibling or parents, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the exact same things I'm struggling to let go. It could be anything. So the first decision is to decide, to understand that letting go is a choice that we get to make, and we are gifted that choice by ourselves. No one else. And it doesn't matter how many people tell you to let it go. Let it go. They can sing all the songs. They can do whatever. We have to decide inside our hearts and our minds that we're going to be aware of what we're feeling and how much time and thought and effort we're putting into this thing. And then we need to decide to let it go. So it's a choice. And that choice puts it in our control, right? So I can choose to let something stay in my head rent-free, which means they're not giving back to me and I'm just spinning my wheels, giving thought to them or that thing. Or I can choose to push it aside, deal with the emotions that come with it. I'm not talking about push it aside and bury it like it doesn't exist, because one day that will explode like a jack-in-the-box that I always talk about in front of my face, right? So push it aside, deal with it, which are the next steps, and then let it go. So step 1, just to backtrack a little bit, was deciding that this is a choice. So I'm getting a little animated. My laptop is sliding. So I can hit my desk in one of my jack-in-the-box moments. Step 2 is, for me at least, and this is I don't get these steps from any book, or there's nothing I could share with you right now. These are just steps that I've gone through in my therapy and my rebuilding of my life and my mental health after my daughter and after my partner and loss, and after facing the consequences of decisions I made. You can do these probably in any order. I'm not suggesting that you have to do step 1 and step 2. Step 1, deciding that you can take control, I think is an important step 1. I think the others you can probably decide to do in any order that work for you. So this next step for me was understanding what was stopping me. And for me, that means, and I'm still doing some of this as I go through other steps as well, I come back to this step and I take inventory of what is holding me back. If I'm choosing, because it's a choice, to not let go, why? Why do I keep going back? What's stopping me from just saying, oh, well, letting go is a choice. So I choose to let go, because with that comes happiness and health and no sorrow and joy and gratitude and all these great things, right? But why, after all this time, am I still holding on? So I have to stop myself from asking all of the what if questions. What if I had done this? What if I had said this? What if, when this happened, we did this instead? Did I fail here? Did I acknowledge here? Was I? Should I? Should we have? Did we? What will everyone think? Stop asking all the questions, because no one, not even ourselves, can truly answer those. You know, if we feel like we really need answers to those, we could say, well, today, viewing this situation from my lens right now, this is what could have happened. But we really don't know, because we tend to view things from a different lens at different times. Excuse me. Let me dive into that a little bit. So I can look back on decisions I made. Let's go way back and say a decision I made when I was 25 years old. If I look back on that now, many of us look back on that now and we would just roll our eyes and be like, I can't believe I did that. But if you look at that same decision from the lens of the 25-year-old self, it may make sense. But the lens of where you are today after this emotional, physical growth and where you are in your life with your career, with your job, with your family, with your friends, with where you live, you know, all those environmental factors, you're not the same person you were when you were 25, unless 25 happened to be yesterday. Let me put it to you another way. I have children. They're all teenagers. And when they see pictures of themselves as babies or as toddlers, like this naked toddler in the bathtub photos, they get so embarrassed, you know, and they're like, oh, don't show that. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe, you know, and I tell them all the time, like, wait a minute. I wouldn't take a picture of you right now standing in the bathtub naked, because not only would that be illegal and inappropriate, but you have to look at your life and the things that you did that were super cute that you might not think is cute because you know they're you, but if they were anyone else, you would be like, oh, that's so cute, naked baby in the bathtub, how sweet. You have to look at those things from the lens of the time you decided them, right? So, a 2-year-old playing in the bathtub with a rubber duck in her mouth. Funny, right? But look at it from the lens of the 2-year-old, or even from the parent who maybe took the picture. Now, I'm not talking about sharing this on social media or whatever. I'm just talking about what parents do. Like, we relish those moments, those young years, those early years when everything is new and everything's amazing and everything's wonderful. And then when we tell those stories to our children as they get older, they're always like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Why would I do that? Why would you celebrate that? Why did you let me? You know, but they're not looking at that time of growth as a toddler or as an infant from the lens of a toddler or as an infant. It's hard for us to go back and look through our own eyes 10 years ago, much less when we were babies and toddlers, because we don't typically remember much of that time, if any of it. And so what they're doing when they have these kind of gut reactions of being so embarrassed when you show their boyfriends or girlfriends or best friends these silly little toddler photos, they get that embarrassed feeling because they're looking at it from the lens of themselves at 15 or 17 or, you know, whatever age. And they need to be going back and looking at it from the lens of the age they were. It's perfectly appropriate for a toddler to be doing this. Perfectly appropriate. Not appropriate for a teenager. So there's some big differences there. So take inventory in this step. What's stopping us? What's weighing us down? What are those triggers? How can we stop those triggers in their tracks? And how can we begin to blossom in this space of letting go by recognizing what stops us in our tracks? So I've been struggling personally with several things. And my trauma runs pretty deep and it's very layered. And I've had to break down my trauma into these individual layers and tackle each layer on its own. And so letting go comes in layers. Like I need to let this layer go first, and then I need to let this layer go, and this layer and that layer. And then there are things, there are different people, there are different things, different incidents. Just try to break down your trauma or your happening. It doesn't have to be traumatic. It doesn't have to be trauma. It can be drama. It can be something silly. It can be, like I said, something that happened at work that just made you mad, and then it just affects your day, the rest of the day, or the rest of the week. Or you're just, your just gut reaction is, I just want to quit. I just want to leave. But that's not the best thing to do. So instead I need to let this go. Okay, so it doesn't have to be trauma. This page is not just about trauma. This is about living authentically. And in order to do that, we need to learn how to be authentic in our spaces. And for me, personally, why I'm sharing a lot of my journey is, for me, this looks like healing from my trauma inside a space of personal growth and in a space of new relationships, new friendships, new coworkers, new girlfriend, my daughter turning into an adult very soon, her journey. So there's a lot there that I am personally trying to navigate with my relationships and living inside this vulnerable space where people know exactly where I am allows me to sit in that space safely. So that's what this is about. So don't think for a moment you have to be recovering from some kind of trauma to learn how to let things go. I remember several years ago, probably, my daughter is 17, almost 18 now, so maybe close to 10 years ago, I got an email right at bedtime. And I was a stay-at-home mom then, did some writing on the side, was just writing to write. I'd always been a writer, but I had been a stay-at-home mom at that point in my life. And so I didn't really have those financial responsibilities. My responsibilities were home, house, and kids. And I got this email close to bedtime from another mom in this mom's group. And it was regarding something going on at school. And it was offensive. It was attacking my character. It was cruel. I didn't let it go. I couldn't go to bed. I was up all night, and by like 3 o'clock in the morning, I had worked my way into this migraine. And my mother, who lived close to me at the time, was a nurse and got up and started her shift at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I had to call her at work and ask her to leave her job to come and help me because I couldn't get off the floor because I had spun myself into this migraine, reacting to this email. And I had gone back and forth with this woman a couple of times. So instead of just like, well, that's really disrespectful, let it go, delete, which is probably what I would do today, I engaged, and it just got worse. And it was like a snowball. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And by 6 o'clock in the morning, I could not get off of my floor. I had been throwing up. I couldn't see. That's how my migraines were at that time in my life. They still are sometimes, but not as bad. I had to call her and ask her to come and take my kids to school and then to come and nurse me back to health because I couldn't even get off of my floor. It was awful. It was just awful. And I think my youngest was probably in preschool, maybe, or maybe he was still at home, not in school at all. It was hard. And it was only because I was unable to let it go. somebody projected all of whatever she was carrying onto me. And then I carried that like a weight to the point where I was physically ill. And then I had to affect my mother's life and my children's lives because I couldn't care for my kids. Talk about horrible. I mean, I've got some stuff that I'm not letting go from the last year and the last couple of years, but those are really traumatic events and traumatic responses to these events. This was just silly. Ultimately, this was just almost like a gauge of where my mental health really was at that point, because I held on to this and let her bully me into this spot where I couldn't even defend myself anymore. And guys, this was nothing. I mean, honestly, the email was about a fundraising event for the school. That's what it was about. How silly. And to this day, I would love to look at that woman and say, did you know that email that you sent me that attacked my character because I had given other options for fundraising ideas sent me spiraling down to the point where I couldn't care for my kids, and I had a migraine, and I was throwing up all over the place, and I couldn't see because I get these aura migraines or ocular migraines. I don't think she would care, but it also makes me wonder, where was she in her personal life and her marriage and her journey with her children's lives, and that she could attack someone and affect their life in such a negative way. It's just crazy. But ultimately, it fell on my shoulders to read the email, to reply to the next one, to hit delete. That was all a choice, right? So that's step one. This is a choice. I chose to reply. I chose to engage. I chose to keep going until it made me physically ill. And I think if you had asked me 10 years ago, what did you choose to? Well, of course I chose to, but I had to. I had to defend myself. I didn't deserve that. I had to go back. We could come up with all kinds of stuff, but ultimately what better protects our mental health and our healing and our moving forward without these people in our lives is to just choose to let it go. I don't really care 10 years later what this woman thinks of me, and I don't go to that school, and I walked away from that school for several reasons. So there were signs there that none of this world was a good fit for me and my family anyway. If I had just let it go, I wouldn't have needed to call my mother for help for my kids. Isn't it weird? It's just a choice. So what was stopping me that day? Well, what everybody might have thought of me, how she took my suggestions, how this would affect my relationship with the school, with my kids' parents. And it was ultimately, in the end, like when you add all those things up and you put them under one category, it's what other people think. What do other people think? I don't really care. I don't really care. Because again, this particular situation was fundraising for our children. And there's a point where you want to step up and stand up for yourself and for your children, and you want to draw those boundaries. But I didn't draw boundaries in that situation. I just kept engaging, which just got the snowball bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I needed to know at that time was what was stopping me from letting go, and then to make the choice to do it. So, step one, understand that letting go is a choice. Step two, and again, you don't have to do these in steps, take inventory of what's stopping us from letting things go. What stops you from letting something go? Obviously, it's going to be different in every different situation. What's stopping you? I looked at my girlfriend this week, who I have grown to adore and love, but even bigger than love, adore and admire. And I told her, it's a choice. Letting go is a choice, and I'm working on it. And in the end, if it comes down to sitting in this pain or starting a life with you, I choose you. Because doesn't that sound and feel so much better than bogging myself down in this pain? But in order to not fill this empty void with her, I have to heal the void and then put her somewhere else. So you still have to go through the process of letting go. But For me, when I make it that black and white, when I make it in a spectrum of gradient color, which and I will always advise never live on one extreme or the other. So never live in the here's your rainbow. These are the colors, the black and the white, and then here's all the gradient in between, all the grays, and I don't care what colors you want to use. Here's all the grays in between. This is where we live, right? This is where life happens. But when I make something as simple as I could live in this pain and not learn to let go and stay stuck here forever and just cycle all around, or I could choose you. I choose you. Every bit of every moment of every day, because it's beautiful right here. And this is ugly and painful. But they are also two separate things. They don't connect this way. There's just all this life in between. So it's not always as simple as this or that, right? But while I'm working in the gradient, while I'm healing, I need to make sure she knows. And in other parts of my life, other people know, and other events or become more important, that the living is more important than the staying stuck in the trying to let go. So take inventory of what's stopping you from letting go. And remember, it's a choice. And we'll come back tomorrow for some more tips and tricks.